should I call you Mr. White or Michael or
Oh, Michael, whatever.
can I call you Mikey like we've been friends for a long time?
I don't care.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
I was not expecting that.
yeah.
Hello there, Michael J. White. Thank you so much for joining us here at JoBlo. I have a lot to ask you. First of all, I wanted to congratulate you on the movie As Good as Dead. I watched it last night. An action hero that I always love to see is the guy with the past that he's always prepping for impending attack. And then this is like, yeah, that kind of Rambo type character.
Mm-hmm.
And, I noticed, this movie you actually wrote. How did this story come to you?
Well, I had the story in my head for a while, and I thought about being in a rural community in the United States, but then later I decided, because my brother kind of inspired this a bit, because my brother moved to Mexico, lived in Playa del Carmen, and started a family there. And I always had a deep love for the Latino community, and it's just the family life and the hardworking ethic that they had. And I said, man, I really want to set this movie there. And being that there hadn't been any kind of really martial art type of movie settings with the Latino audience, I wanted to fuse the two, and and possibly help bring about a young Latino action star, that kind of a thing.
Right.
So that all those things came together, and why I decided to do it in Mexico.
What I taught you is not for competition.
How can I test myself if I don't compete with others?
Even if you decide to compete, promise me that you won't use the style that I taught you.
So did your brother encounter like gangs and sort of rough crowd down there as well?
No, my brother actually, he just was a conduit to living in in that community, just that culture,
Mhm.
and so that's what influenced me to do that. But unfortunately, my brother passed away about a month before we started filming, and he was going to be my language coach, because originally I was going to do half of the movie speaking Spanish.
Let me offer my condolences. I'm very sorry to hear about that. The character of Bryant has this unique fighting style. It looked like Muay Thai with maybe a variation to it. Was that something you just sort of like this whole thing that you made up for the movie, or is that based on anything?
Well, originally I wanted you to kind of develop a unique fighting system for the movie, so when you see it, you don't forget it. But then I discovered the Defense Lab system, which is taught to me and choreographed by Michelle Quach. In that, he was part of the same people who did the fight choreography for The Dark Knight.
Okay. So because I noticed the Kisi method, they do this sort of protection thing. Is that basically what you varied up with that one?
Yeah. So I thought that would be the best contributor for what I wanted to do in the movie.
What do you do to make these guys want to kill you?
I took down their boss and most of his organization. They've been wanting me dead for years.
This man is an elite soldier, and we need this taken care of.
He must be some kind of black Rambo.
And I know that you're actually an expert at many styles. Whenever you do a movie, do you pick like, this would be a great style to showcase, like people haven't seen something like this before, or this is like really cinematic? Is there anything that you try to spotlight when you do different movies?
Well, it depends on the character. So for me, the movie should fight I should fight as the character.
Right.
So like give you an example. I've done Wu-Shu for many years, but have not done that type of fighting in a movie because it's so specific. But I look forward to doing the movie where I would bring Wu-Shu into it.
I was actually curious about that. Yeah, like the more classical styles. Are you like working on anything where you can do like the classic shape, like whoosh, whoosh, and all
Oh
that
yeah,
stuff?
absolutely. I have two projects in the works where
Mhm.
I would bring about my Wu-Shu training.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
There's a funny scene in the movie where you're talking with a character about you guys are trying to figure out what movies relates to your life, and
Hmm.
I couldn't help but think, is this like, are you roasting like peers of yours, especially like Elaine, Mousy, however you say it,
Hmm.
um, like with sort of inside jokes with, oh, that was Van Damme. No, they did that too, or and things like that. Was that like a little jab at your peers
No,
there?
I'm actually wanting to write dialogue that you would believe these guys would say.
Oh,
And
okay.
I don't care who you are. You could be from two opposite, you know, polar opposite type of communities,
Mhm.
but you can wind up talking about Van Damme movies. If you're a guy, I don't care, you could be the Aryan Brotherhood leader and in the Nation of Islam leader, and you both probably have seen those movies and can talk.
I've looked.
And you don't know how to say the Elaine Mousy or Moosey
Mousy.
or how to say it, you know what I mean? So
Right.
basically, I'm just writing dialogue that you believe these guys would be talking about.
Don't hold your gun sideways.
Just a little rusty. Seriously, you're gonna have to start calling you Rambro. No. Wait, I'm sorry.
I'd like to open up to your career as a whole. You obviously, you and Scott Adkins breathed life into the Undisputed franchise, and then he just sort of ran with the rest of the sequels. Do you ever look to maybe returning to that series?
Well, no, not really. I mean,
Mhm.
if it's organic to do so.
I think that would be an awesome reunion for you too. I know you guys do a
Mhm.
lot. And that's actually another thing that I was wondering about, because you worked with Scott many times on Accident Man. You guys were surrounded by a lot of action stars, and you
Mhm.
know Skin Trade, you Tony Judd, Dolph Lundgren. You have these movies where triple threats. You have all these movies where all these people are so gifted at what they do. And I interviewed Scott and I asked him the same question. When you guys are on sets like that, is there an underbelly of like competition going on? Are there egos being in check?
No, no. Scott's like a brother of mine.
Yeah.
And I encourage him. In fact, in Undisputed too,
Yeah.
I fought hard from my character being a martial artist. They
Oh.
wanted my character to be a martial artist as well. And I thought, no, I want to be a boxer who has to learn some martial arts. I had to humble myself and learn learn to overcome my opponent
Mm.
instead of being already a martial art. Yeah, I mean, and encourage him to do his best stuff, you
Right.
know?
Right.
There were times me coming up, and I don't want to name any names, where the star will try to dim your shine,
Uh-huh.
and that happened to me where they didn't want me to outshine them, but I'm
Uh,
the opposite. I want you to
right.
outshine me.
Another one of my favorites of yours is Blood and Bone, and I felt like you guys were doing sort of a throwback tribute to Bruce Lee movies, especially with Bob Walby and having a cameo appearance. And I always felt like, because like you said, you always like to be the underdog, and I think in interviews before you said you don't want to look like the bully. But in that movie there was like a specific, I don't want to say invincibility, but there was like a trait where your character is unbeatable even when he's challenged. He gets challenged a little bit. Was that your guys' intent, to sort of, because like in old Bruce Lee movies he would pretty much be dominating because of his skill. He's just too good, and whenever he gets challenged he adapts, and then that's when he overcomes. Was Blood and Bone, your character, sort of a throwback to that?
Well, it winds up to be a throwback to that to some degree, but it's more so based on the movie Hard Times
Mm.
with Charles Bronson.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but so as it happens, one of the conundrums I face is that I tend to be a larger guy with speed and power,
Mhm.
and sometimes it's difficult to find bigger guys with the similar thing.
Right.
So I then wind up looking a bit overwhelming in cases, but it
Mm.
makes better sense where I'm fighting several people at one time, right?
Right.
So we had a really tough time finding the Price character, where I'd have to have somebody you want somebody bigger, but who can do all the stuff.
Right.
And when we found Matt Mullins, he was of similar height, but smaller. But we put him in a suit and we try to kind of tone me down a bit,
Right.
and put me in baggy clothes so I don't look like the bully in the situation. But that's a conundrum that I wind up facing because it's unusual to find bigger guys with the skill level like a Matt Mullins.
Right. Well, I thought you guys handled it well by focusing on his speed and his dexterity. It's like, when Bruce Lee fought Chuck Norris, he had to adapt to his style. Um
Yeah,
and also
Bruce Lee being smaller,
yeah,
it's what I mean. It's there's a dearth of people that he could fight bigger than him.
that's
But
true, yeah.
like I'm doing a fight scene with Iko or Tony Jaa,
Yeah.
and
To fight two of them.
to kick him in the face is to kick this low,
Right.
right? So it doesn't look very heroic,
Mm-hmm.
but that's just part
Or
of
you
being
fight
a
him,
larger guy, kind of.
you fight both him and Tiger Chen at the same time. Something that I mean, I'm a huge fan of Black Dynamite. I think as far as movies that emulate 70s films, that was one of the best ones. Especially there's like this sequence where you're on a date and it's just like it's a montage and there's this cheesy love song playing. I'm like, that's
Mhm.
straight out of 70s movie. And I know you guys did an animated series based on that. Was there any talks about doing sequels or doing more of those?
Yeah, there's always been talks about doing sequels, um, um, and there was I wrote the Black Dynamite 2 a
Mm.
number of years ago,
Oh,
and those most people who read it, they say it's better than the original.
oh wow.
But the only problem is when you're doing these movies, sometimes you have producers who sometimes they kind of get in the way of progress. And that unfortunately, we have a producer who's never been on the same page as far as getting that done.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's one of those things.
Well, did you tell him the fans really want to see
Well, he knows the fans really want to see it, and
it?
I mean, so it's
Let me talk to him. I can. I'm
yeah.
big in the business. You're my second interview, by the way, but I'm pretty big in the business. So.
Mhm.